logic of his noblest ideals. We must deal with what is clearly before us. The blood of innocence and injustice cries from the earth. Abel's blood will not be silenced. Weeping Rachel will not be consoled. God will not allow America to short-circuit the road to authentic health and healing by the bully tactics of those who insist on trying the age-old and failed method of shouting down the truth. For as Dr. King so often reminded us, truth crushed the earth will rise again. The human spirit can only be put down, degraded, contained, entrapped, ensnared, and imprisoned for so long before it comes storming back in the full majesty of its godlike claim of inherent dignity and worth. I hear my good friend James Noel saying, if you treat a person like an animal long enough, sooner or later they'll respond like a human being. The current conflation of militarism and patriotism, cooked up through the heat of fear into a witch's brew of the new American patriotism, has turned a major portion of our nation into little more than socio-political bullies trying to beat, scream, and shoot their way to a vision of America that leaves the fantasy of a guiltless nation intact. A fantasy white America enjoys at the expense of the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness of too many of its fellow citizens. What are these police killings of young black males in the streets of America, if not the panicked response of a particular American demographic preoccupied with pride of place in a socio-cultural pecking order that presupposes the inferior status of black Americans? Let me say it another way. What is this rash of police killings and the outrageous absence of moral outrage if it is not an effort to put black America back in its place? A brutal backlash against pride in a black president that might just inspire a new generation to see themselves as equal and empowered. What is this absence of moral outrage and the meaningless conversations and endless ratiocination in the face of obvious evidence, if not a symbol of the moral bankruptcy of the old liberal establishment as it thrashes about desperately, and I might add hopelessly, for a moral and political identity that does not disturb the false equilibrium of a self-satisfied white political core? We must go back to the valley. Again, I say our salvation as a nation is in the valley. I believe God would have it that way because no lie can live forever. I am summoned today by a divinity in the universe that shapes our ends, rough hew them how we will, to remind you that Dr. King, like Jesus, like Malcolm, like Gandhi, like Mega, like Viola Gray-Liuzzo, like James Chaney, like Andrew Goodman, like Michael Schwerner, like Emmett Till, like Trayvon Martin, like Kamani Gray, like Kendrick McDade, like Timothy Russell, like Amadou Diallo, like Sean Bell, like Sandra Bland, and far too many others did not die on the mountain. Dr. King died in the valley. He went back to the valley and never made it out. Dr. King did not die peacefully on the mountain like Moses, but crucified like Christ in the valley. Dr. King did not die in a mountain dream, but we heard him last caught in the clutches of a valley nightmare. And if we are committed to this struggle, we must follow him there and be prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice. Indeed, as Bonhoeffer has rightly said, when Christ calls a man, he bid him come and die. I do not have the cheap and cheesy hope of liberal optimism which both conservative and liberal America cherish and enjoy, but the deep and abiding hope against hope that affirms the value of life even amidst its terrible and daily denials. This is hope in the valley. I have valley hope. It is going to take valley hope to sustain the magnificence of a mountain vision. The valley hope is not some will-o'-the-wisp or some wild-eyed claim made in the interest of appearing pious. No, it's grounded in an abiding faith, in a loving God that works through people, places, and things to make his will known. I have hope, not in the pious pretensions of a morally bankrupt Americanity, where God is little more than the ideological sanction of greed, empty optimism, and an idolatrous narcissism, but rather in the God I have seen. I have hope because I've seen him in the 100 weeping Rachels across the length and breadth of America who refuse to surrender their sons and daughters to a meaningless death. I have hope because I've seen him in the Black Lives Matter movement, mobilized against all odds and opposition to stand up for justice in a tradition many thought stifled and dead in this land. I have hope because I have seen him in the battalion of African American scholars who have not surrendered to the epistemological relativism of a self-indulgent, ludic postmodernism, but insist instead that there is such a thing as truth, and we are duty-bound to proclaim it to power.
Yes, yes.
I've seen God in the tired and weary bodies of the burdened, set ablaze by a fiery passion, lighting our way to freedom and justice amidst the midnight of nihilism, cynicism, and despair. I have hope because I've seen him in that portion of the church that has not sold its birthright of grace and justice for a mess of prosperity pottage, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the fruits of sin for a season. I have seen him in the watchfires of 100 circling camps. They have builded him an altar in the evening dews and damps. I have read his righteous sentence by the dim and flaring lamps. His day is marching on. He is coming like the glory of the morning on the wave. He is wisdom to the mighty. He is succor to the brave. So the world shall be his footstool and the soul of time his slave. Our God is marching on. Glory, hallelujah. Glory, hallelujah. God is marching on.